AITA for refusing to give up my wedding venue to my sister after she got engaged and decided she deserved it more. So I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancé, Evan, 30M, next spring. We've been together for 6 years, engaged for 2, and planning this wedding for about a year and a half. I'm a pretty practical person, and I've been slowly paying for everything myself because I didn't want to rely too much on my parents. I booked our venue last year. It's this beautiful historic mansion outside of town with gardens, a little lake, and a ballroom that looks like something out of a movie. The venue books up fast. Some couples reserve it 2 years in advance. I got extremely lucky and snagged a date that worked for both of our families. My younger sister, Megan, 25F, has always been the golden child in the family. She's charming, spontaneous, and somehow always gets away with chaos because she's just being Megan. She and her boyfriend, Kyle, have been dating for a year, literally 1 year to the day last month when he proposed. The proposal was a big spectacle. She posted the whole thing on Instagram, complete with professional photos and a drone video. Everyone was gushing in the comments, and I was happy for her, truly, until she started talking about her dream wedding. At brunch with my mom and Megan 2 weeks after her engagement, she started talking about how she wanted a timeless venue with vintage charm and grand architecture. My mom immediately said, "Oh, like where your sister is getting married." Megan lit up and said, "Exactly. That will be perfect." I kind of laughed and said, "Well, it is beautiful, but it's been booked for over a year now." Megan didn't say anything at first, but I could see her gears turning. A few days later, my mom called me and asked if I'd be willing to give Megan my venue and choose another one. I thought she was joking. She said Megan had been crying because she'd fallen in love with the venue after looking at photos of it online and couldn't imagine getting married anywhere else. I reminded my mom that the venue was non-refundable and we'd already paid the deposit, designed the invitations, and booked the caterer. My mom said she and Dad could help me find something else, and that family should come before wedding logistics. I said absolutely not. Then Megan called. She started by saying how happy she was for me and how much she loved the vision I'd shared for my wedding. Then she said she and Kyle had visited my venue. She actually drove out there without telling me, and she just knew it was where she was supposed to get married. I told her that was nice, but I'd already signed a contract. She got quiet and said, "If you really loved me, you'd want me to have the day of my dreams." That set me off. I told her it was incredibly selfish to expect me to throw away a year and a half of planning because she couldn't think of something original. She started crying, called me a bridezilla, and hung up. Later that night, my mom texted me that I should just let her have it and that I was making things harder than they needed to be. My dad tried to stay out of it, but eventually called to mediate. He said he understood my side, but maybe I could compromise by switching my date to a different weekend since the venue had limited availability. The problem? Megan wanted my exact date too, because it's her engagement anniversary. Evan thinks the whole situation is ridiculous and said we shouldn't budge an inch. He even offered to call the venue and asked them to block out the rest of the spring just so Megan couldn't swoop in. I told him not to, because that would make the drama even worse. Things escalated last week when my mom hosted a small dinner and invited both of us. The topic inevitably came up. Megan said she was willing to pay me back for my deposit, as if she were doing me a favor. I said no again and explained, calmly, that I wasn't changing anything. She started crying again, saying I always take things from her and that I could get married anywhere. My mom sided with her, saying, "You already have Evan in your perfect life. Let your sister have this one thing." I got up and left the dinner early. Since then, Megan has barely spoken to me except to send passive-aggressive messages like, "I hope your venue lives up to the hype." My mom keeps sending me links to cute barn venues that could be a good alternative. My dad says he's disappointed that we're letting something like this ruin family relationships. Last weekend, Megan posted a poll on her Instagram story asking her followers which venue she should pick, one of the options being mine, with the caption manifesting this one. I was mortified. Some of her friends even commented things like, "You totally deserve it. It's so you, and maybe your sister will share." I finally texted her and said if she mentioned my venue again publicly, I consider it harassment and would contact the venue manager to make sure she couldn't book there at all. She called me toxic and said I was threatening her over a building. Now the family group chat is split. My mom and a couple of relatives are calling me selfish and unkind for not helping Megan have her dream wedding. Others, including some cousins, think she's being completely out of line. Evan says we should just ignore them all and move forward. But I can't help feeling guilty because my family keeps treating me like I'm ruining Megan's happiness. To add a cherry on top, Megan recently told our mutual friends that she and Kyle might elope if I don't do the right thing, and that she'll never forgive me if that happens. I've tried to stay civil, but it's getting harder when I'm constantly being told that I'm the problem. It's gotten so tense that I'm considering uninviting her altogether because I can't imagine her showing up to my wedding with genuine support. My mom says that would be a slap in the face to family unity. Part of me wonders if I should have just picked a different venue from the start, even though I booked mine first. But the other part of me knows if it wasn't this, Megan would have found something else to compete over, because that's been our dynamic since childhood. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding venue, even though she says I'm ruining her dream day. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to give up my late mother's wedding dress that my sister wants to repurpose for her wedding. So, some context first. My 29F mother passed away 6 years ago after a long battle with breast cancer. It hit our family hard, especially me and my younger sister, Julia, 26F. My mom was one of those people who made everything feel warm and safe. She loved traditions and sentimental things, and one of her most prized possessions was her wedding dress. It wasn't a designer piece or anything, but she'd hand-sewn a lot of it herself when she was 24. Delicate lace, tiny pearl buttons, and this soft champagne fabric that had yellowed a little over time. When she was sick, she told both of us that she wanted her dress to stay in the family. She didn't specify what exactly that meant, just that it was special and should be kept safe. After she passed, we split her personal belongings with the help of her dad. I got the dress, while Julia took Mom's jewelry box and her favorite antique vanity. At the time, Julia was fine with it. She even said, "You're the sentimental one anyway. You'll keep it safe." Fast forward to this year, Julia got engaged. Her fiancé, Mark, is great, solid guy, very caring. I'm genuinely happy for them. But about a month ago, Julia came to me with a favor. She said she wanted to use Mom's wedding dress for her own wedding, but not in the way I expected. She wanted to cut it apart, dye it a different color, and have her dressmaker modernize it into a completely new gown. I hesitated. I told her I didn't think Mom would want that. Mom loved that dress exactly as it was. She used to say it represented the happiest day of her life. But Julia got emotional and said it was her way of honoring Mom, that wearing something of hers would make her feel close to her on her big day. I told her that I completely understood the sentiment, but cutting it apart felt wrong. I offered an alternative. She could take some lace from the hem, or maybe use one of the buttons as part of her bouquet or hair accessory. But Julia said that wasn't enough, and that I was being possessive and selfish. Things escalated quickly. She cried, saying I was hoarding Mom's memory for myself. She said I already had plenty of mementos, photo albums, cards, even Mom's old recipe book, and that this one thing should be for her. She also said, "You're not even married or engaged, so why do you need it? It's just sitting in your closet." That one stung. She's right that I'm single, but that doesn't mean I don't treasure the dress. I don't plan to wear it myself. I just want to preserve it. It's one of the few tangible pieces of Mom that still exists, and once it's altered, it can never be undone. After that argument, we didn't talk for a week. Then our dad called me and said Julia had been crying to him about it. He said maybe I could meet her halfway, since it's her wedding and emotions are high. He suggested maybe we let her redesign part of it and keep the rest preserved. But to me, that feels like destroying the integrity of the dress entirely. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, and he said I was being rigid. Now the situation has snowballed. My aunt, mom's sister, called me out of nowhere to say Julia told her I'm holding the dress hostage, and said, "Your mother would want both of you to be happy, not fighting over a piece of fabric." She even added that she could help Julia alter it tastefully so that it still honors mom. But that doesn't change the fact that the original would be gone forever. Last weekend, Julia came to my apartment unannounced. She asked again, calmly this time. She even showed me a sketch her designer made. It's beautiful, but it looks nothing like mom's dress. It's a totally modern style with a corset top and a tulle skirt. I told her again that I couldn't give her permission to cut it up, but I'd happily pay for her to have a custom gown made inspired by mom's. That set her off. She started yelling that I was trying to buy her off and that I cared more about an object than my sister's happiness. She left in tears. Now, half of my family thinks I'm cruel and controlling, and the other half, mostly cousins who know how sentimental I am, says Julia is being manipulative. To make matters worse, Julia posted a vague post on Facebook that said some people would rather cling to the past than share love in the present, with a broken heart emoji. Our mutual friends, and even some of mom's old friends commented things like, "I'm so sorry, you deserve better," and "Your mom would want you to be happy." I didn't comment, but it felt like a punch in the gut. I keep second-guessing myself. Am I really being selfish? Should I just let her have it and let go of the emotional attachment? I know it's just a dress, but it's also not just a dress. It's the last thing my mom ever hand-stitched. There's even a tiny heart sewn into the inner lining that she told me represented her and Dad's love. I can't bear the thought of that being ripped apart. The other day, I finally took the dress out of storage just to look at it again. It still smells faintly like the cedar chest it's been kept in, and when I ran my fingers over the lace, I felt this ache in my chest. It's not about ownership, it's about preservation. It's about keeping a small piece of her intact in a world where everything else has already changed. But then I think about Julia walking down the aisle, wishing mom could be there, and I feel guilty all over again. Maybe having a part of the dress would bring her comfort. Maybe I'm letting my own grief cloud my judgment. Still, I can't get past the idea that once it's altered, it's gone forever. Dad called again yesterday to say Julia has decided to move forward with her dressmaker and figure something out. I asked if he meant she'd accepted my offer to fund a new dress, but he said she might find a way to get what she needs. I got this horrible, sinking feeling, like he was implying she might take it without asking. So last night, I moved the dress to my friend's place for safekeeping. Now I feel like a paranoid villain guarding a family heirloom, but I can't shake the fear that Julia will try to get it. Everyone keeps saying it's just fabric, but to me it's more than that. It's memory, it's history, it's mom. So here I am, caught between wanting to protect something irreplaceable and wanting peace in my family. Julia's wedding is in 6 months, and the tension is already unbearable. I don't know if I'm being the unreasonable one, or if everyone else just doesn't understand what this means to me. AITA for refusing to give up my late mother's wedding dress. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his wife name their baby after my late husband. I, 32F, lost my husband, Daniel, 3 years ago in a car accident. We've been married for 4 years, together for nearly a decade. It was one of those freak things, black ice, wrong angle, instant. I don't remember much from the weeks after except my mom moving into my apartment because I couldn't even get out of bed. Daniel wasn't just my husband. He was my best friend since high school, my entire sense of safety and home. I've spent the last few years rebuilding my life in small, quiet ways. Therapy, moving into a smaller place, taking up hiking because Daniel used to love it, and it feels like I can still be close to him out in the woods. I'm not over it, but I've learned to live with it. My brother, Ethan, 30M, and his wife, Melissa, 28F, are expecting their first child next month. Everyone's thrilled. My parents are over the moon about finally becoming grandparents. Melissa and I get along fine. We're not super close, but we're friendly. I've helped them with nursery stuff, went to the baby shower, all that. A few weeks ago, Ethan called me over to their place, saying they wanted to share something special. They sat me down, looking all emotional, and told me they decided on a name for the baby, Daniel. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. It's not a super rare name. But Melissa smiled and said, "We wanted to name him after your Daniel. He meant so much to you and to our family, and we thought it would be such a beautiful way to honor him." I froze. I didn't know what to say. I managed something like, "Oh, wow, that's unexpected." Ethan must have picked up on my hesitation because he asked, "Don't you think it's a good idea?" Here's the thing. Daniel was mine. His name still feels sacred. Hearing it on another person, especially a baby I'll see constantly at family gatherings, feels wrong. I can barely say his name without tearing up. The thought of everyone cooing, "Little Danny," at Thanksgiving makes me feel like I can't breathe. I told them, as gently as I could, that I appreciated the thought, but I wasn't comfortable with it. I said it felt too personal, too painful, and that I wasn't ready to hear his name used like that. Ethan looked stunned and said, "But it's not your name. We're honoring him. He was family too." Melissa added, "We thought this would make you happy, like a piece of him lives on." I tried explaining that while I understood their intentions, grief is complicated. I said that hearing the name constantly would be like reopening a wound that I've worked hard to heal. Ethan got defensive and said, "So you're saying we can't name our kid what we want because it upsets you?" I told him, "You can name your baby whatever you want, but I'm being honest about how it would affect me." He got quiet, and Melissa started tearing up. She said she didn't realize it would cause drama, and that now they felt like they couldn't use the name without making me the villain. I left soon after because the tension was unbearable. A few days later, my mom called. She said she understood where I was coming from, but that I should reconsider because it really would be a lovely tribute. I told her that it didn't feel like a tribute to me. It felt like losing Daniel all over again. She sighed and said, "Honey, he's been gone 3 years. Maybe this could help you move forward." That one hurt. I asked her if she would feel the same if someone named their kid after Dad if he died suddenly. He's alive and healthy, thankfully. She said it wasn't the same thing. Last week, Ethan texted me saying they decided to go ahead with the name anyway. He said, "We love Daniel too, and this isn't just about you." That stung, but I didn't respond. Since then, I've pulled back a bit. I still plan to visit when the baby is born, but I know myself. I'm not sure I can hold him and call him Daniel. Every time I think about it, I feel physically sick. Now my family is divided. My mom thinks I'm being selfish. My dad says it's a gray area. My best friend says it's completely fair that I feel the way I do, that grief doesn't have an expiration date. Ethan's been distant. Melissa posted something vague on Facebook about not letting negativity ruin special moments, which I'm 99% sure was about me. Part of me wonders if I should have just smiled and said thank you, accepted that the name doesn't belong solely to my late husband. But another part of me feels like I'm being forced to share something that's still too raw, and that it's cruel for them to decide that for me. The guilt is eating at me. I know they didn't mean harm. They genuinely thought they were honoring him. But every time I imagine family dinners and everyone calling Daniel, "Come here," and seeing a little boy turn around instead of my husband, I feel hollow. It's not that I don't want their child to have a beautiful name. It's just that this one feels like taking something from me. My therapist says my reaction makes sense and that I'm allowed to have boundaries, even around something symbolic like a name. She also said that grief can make people around you uncomfortable, so they sometimes try to turn loss into something positive to make it easier for themselves to digest. That actually hit me pretty hard because it explains a lot about how my family's handled this. Still, I keep replaying the moment I told Ethan and Melissa no. I wonder if I look cold or if they think I'm trying to control their choices. I'm genuinely not. I just wish they'd asked before deciding, so we could have had an open conversation instead of them presenting it like a done deal. Now, the baby's due in a few weeks, and I don't know how to handle it. Do I go along with it, pretend I'm okay, and swallow the discomfort for the sake of family peace? Or do I keep my distance and risk being branded as the bitter sister who couldn't let go of the past? Every part of me misses Daniel, but I've learned how to live with that ache quietly. This name thing has brought it roaring back. So, AITA for asking them not to name their baby after my late husband, even though they said it was meant as a tribute. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she said I wasn't bridesmaid material. So, I, 27F, have a sister, Mia, 29F, who has always been the golden child in our family. She's charismatic, beautiful, and the kind of person who walks into a room and everyone immediately likes her. I'm quieter. I work in IT, prefer my small circle of friends, and I've always been more comfortable behind the scenes. Growing up, our parents weren't cruel, but they definitely favored her in subtle ways. Her achievements were praised more, her mistakes forgiven faster. I learned to live with it. Mia got engaged last year to her fiancé, Evan, 31M. They're both very into the aesthetic of things. Everything has to be Instagram perfect. From their proposal photo shoot to their engagement party, everything was meticulously curated. When Mia asked me to be her maid of honor, I was honestly surprised and flattered. She said she wanted her best friend and sister by her side, and I actually cried when she asked. I threw myself into planning her bridal shower and bachelorette weekend. I coordinated with her friends, handled deposits, and even took days off work to make sure everything went smoothly. I spent close to $1,200 between decorations, gifts, and travel. Mia was thrilled and told me several times that she couldn't have done it without me. I felt like maybe our relationship was finally maturing into something balanced. Then came the bridesmaid dress shopping day. It was Mia, her 3 other bridesmaids, 2 college friends, and 1 coworker, her future MIL, and me. We were trying on dresses when Mia suddenly said, "Oh, by the way, I've been thinking about the lineup." I thought she meant the walking order. But then she said she decided she didn't want me as maid of honor anymore. I laughed because I thought she was joking. But she said, completely serious, that she wanted her friend Lila to be maid of honor instead. When I asked why, Mia said, "You're just not bridesmaid material. You're lovely, but you don't really fit the aesthetic I'm going for. Lila's energy is more aligned with the vibe of the day." I was stunned. I asked if I had done something wrong, and she said, No, you've been amazing. It's not about effort, it's just about presentation. You're more behind-the-scenes energy. Lila's more spotlight energy. Her future MIL looked uncomfortable, and one of the bridesmaids awkwardly changed the subject. I was mortified. Afterward, I texted her asking if she really meant it, and she said yes, that it wasn't personal, it was just about the aesthetic consistency she wanted for her wedding. She said I could still help coordinate things, just not be in the wedding party. I told her I wasn't comfortable continuing to plan or pay for things now that I wasn't even part of the bridal party. She said I was overreacting and being petty, that it was just a title, and that it would mean a lot if I could still handle the logistics since I was so good at organizing. I said no. I told her she could have her aesthetic without my help or money. She freaked out and accused me of sabotaging her big day out of jealousy. I reminded her that she publicly demoted me in front of everyone after I'd already spent time and money. She said, "Well, I didn't ask you to spend that much. That was your choice." Our parents got involved. Mom thinks I should suck it up and support my sister's vision because it's her once-in-a-lifetime day. Dad's more neutral, but said I should keep the peace because Mia tends to hold grudges. I told them I'm not refusing to attend. I'll show up as a guest, but I'm not her unpaid event planner anymore. Since then, Mia has been posting cryptic things on social media about jealous sisters who can't handle someone else's happiness. Some mutual friends have reached out saying I should apologize because Mia's been so stressed and that a wedding is no time for drama. But honestly, I'm hurt. I didn't care about the title as much as I cared about how she handled it. Like I was some accessory that didn't match her color palette. If she had told me earlier that she wanted someone else, I would have stepped back gracefully. But after everything I did, it feels deeply disrespectful. I talked to my best friend, who said I was absolutely right to draw a line, and that Mia's behavior was entitled. My boyfriend thinks I should go no contact for a while, because Mia clearly sees me as a prop. What's worse is that last week, Mia called me crying because one of her vendors canceled last minute. She asked if I could help out just this once since I'm so good at fixing things. I said, "You'll have to ask your maid of honor." She hung up. Now the family chat is chaos. Mom says I'm being cruel and that family helps family no matter what. Dad asked me to just talk to her and smooth things over. I'm exhausted. I love my sister, but I can't keep letting her treat me like a background character in her story. I keep wondering if maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have just swallowed my pride and helped her anyway. But then I remember how small I felt in that boutique, standing there while she basically said I didn't look good enough to stand next to her. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she said I wasn't bridesmaid material. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she announced a no children under 10 rule, knowing I'm a single mom. So my 32F younger sister Mia, 28F, is getting married in a few months. We've always been close, or at least I thought we were. I'm a single mom to my son, Ethan, 7M. His dad isn't in the picture, and I've been raising him on my own since he was a baby. My family has always been supportive of me, and Mia was actually Ethan's biggest fan growing up. She'd babysit, buy him little gifts, all of that. When Mia got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her. Her fiancé, Ryan, seems like a good guy, and they've been together for years. I helped her with planning, went to cake tastings, and even paid for part of her bridal shower because she was tight on money. I really thought I'd be her maid of honor, but she asked her best friend from college instead. That stung a little, but I brushed it off. A few weeks ago, Mia announced her wedding venue and sent out save the dates. It's a fancy vineyard about 2 hours away. I was already planning logistics for Ethan and me, getting a hotel room, maybe making a little weekend out of it. Then Mia called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, just so you know, we decided the wedding will be child-free. No one under 10. I thought she was joking at first. I asked, "Wait, so Ethan can't come?" And she said no. She added that it wasn't personal and that she wanted an elegant, adult atmosphere. I reminded her that Ethan has always been really well-behaved at family events. He's quiet, polite, and honestly more mature than some adults I know. But she said she didn't want to make exceptions because then other guests will expect exceptions too. I told her that was going to make it really hard for me because I don't have anyone who can watch Ethan that weekend. My parents are both attending the wedding, and I don't have extended family nearby. My best friend offered once, but she's also going to the wedding. Mia just said, "I'm sure you'll figure something out." Over the next few weeks, I kept trying to find childcare. I called everyone, sitters, neighbors, even co-workers, but nobody was available to take him for an entire weekend. Finally, I told Mia that unless I could bring Ethan, I couldn't come. She got upset and said I was punishing her for wanting her dream wedding. I told her I wasn't trying to punish her. I just literally didn't have an option. I offered to keep Ethan out of the ceremony and just bring him to the reception afterward, or even stay in a nearby Airbnb so he wouldn't be around the main venue much. She said no, it wouldn't be fair to other guests with kids. Things escalated from there. My mom got involved and told me I should just find a sitter somehow because Mia was really stressed about the wedding already. I snapped and said, "You're asking me to leave my son with a stranger for an entire weekend so that your daughter can have her perfect photos." My dad tried to mediate, saying Mia's entitled to have the kind of wedding she wants, but also that it was understandable I couldn't come. Then, last week, Mia sent out the actual invitations, and mine didn't include a +1, obviously, or a child guest spot. She added a handwritten note. "Hope you can make it. It wouldn't be the same without you." I honestly felt sick reading it. I called her and said, "You know I can't come unless Ethan can come, right?" She sighed and said, "You're being dramatic. It's one day. You can leave him with someone." I said, "Who? Do you think I have a secret stash of babysitters waiting to take care of a kid they've never met overnight?" She said, "It's not my responsibility to solve your problems, my name." That hit me hard. I told her fine, then I wouldn't attend, and I hoped she had the perfect day she wanted. She hung up on me. Since then, the family group chat has exploded. My mom says she's heartbroken that I'm skipping the wedding over something that could be worked out. My dad is staying neutral, but said he's disappointed. My aunt, who has always been blunt, texted me privately to say Mia is acting selfish and that I shouldn't feel guilty. Mia hasn't spoken to me directly since the call, but she posted something on Instagram that felt like a dig. Boundaries don't make you a bad person. Here's the part where I might be the jerk. A few days ago, Ryan called me. He was surprisingly kind, but said that Mia was really upset and crying, saying she feels like I'm abandoning her on her wedding day. He asked if there was any way I could come without Ethan, even just for the ceremony. I told him that unless they wanted to pay for a certified overnight sitter, which could be over $400 for a weekend, it wasn't happening. He said he'd talked to Mia, but I haven't heard back. Now I'm getting messages from cousins asking why I'm boycotting the wedding and making things harder for everyone. I haven't responded to most of them. I don't want to start more drama, but I also don't want to apologize for something that doesn't feel wrong. Ethan asked the other day if he's going to Aunt Mia's wedding, and I had to tell him no. He looked confused and said, but she said I was the ring bearer. I didn't even know Mia had told him that months ago. I felt this huge lump in my throat. It just feels so personal now. I get that people want child-free weddings. I really do. But the rule feels like it was designed to exclude me specifically. There are only a handful of kids in our family, and almost all of them are older than 10. The only one affected is Ethan. Now I'm torn. My mom says if I don't go, I'll regret it for the rest of my life, and that family comes first. But doesn't that apply to my son too? I've done everything I can to support Mia through this engagement, and it feels like she doesn't care about what my situation is at all. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she won't let me bring my son, even though she knows I don't have anyone to watch him. AITA for refusing to give my sister the wedding venue I booked after she got engaged 2 months before me. So, I, 27F, have been with my fiancé, Adam, 29M, for 5 years. We got engaged last December after a long and honestly beautiful relationship. I've always been the planner in the family. I keep spreadsheets for everything, I make color-coded calendars, and I've dreamed of my wedding since I was a teenager. My younger sister, Megan, 25F, is more spontaneous. She's fun, charismatic, and tends to get what she wants, mostly because my parents have always been a bit softer on her. When Adam proposed, I didn't want to waste time. By January, we'd already chosen a venue, a gorgeous restored barn that books up nearly 2 years in advance. It's this beautiful countryside location with fairy lights, a pond, and a huge oak tree that's often featured in local wedding magazines. We secured a date for this coming September, paid the deposit, and I started designing our invitations. Everything was going perfectly until March, when Megan announced she and her boyfriend, Tyler, had gotten engaged. I was happy for her at first, truly. We've always been close-ish despite our differences, and I thought it would be fun to share the excitement of wedding planning. But within 2 weeks of her engagement, she started making little comments about how stressful it was to find a venue. She mentioned how the barn I booked was her dream spot and how sad she was that it was already taken. I told her that, yeah, it's beautiful, but there are tons of other great venues around. I thought that was the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. About a week later, my mom called me asking if I'd consider sharing my date. I thought she was joking at first, but she wasn't. She said Megan and Tyler didn't want to wait until 2027 for an open slot, and since I booked it first, maybe I could just let them have it and pick another venue. I laughed and said absolutely not. I put down a non-refundable deposit. I planned my entire timeline around this date, and I wasn't going to start from scratch. Apparently, that was the wrong answer. Megan started crying to my parents that I was being selfish and ruining her dream wedding. Then my parents doubled down, telling me I should be a team player because family should come first. I reminded them that Megan had been engaged for 2 months, and I'd been planning for almost half a year. My dad said something like, "You're both getting married. What's 1 year difference?" Well, that blew up into a full family argument. Megan stopped talking to me entirely, and my parents kept sending me passive-aggressive texts about how disappointed they were in my lack of generosity. Adam told me to ignore them, but it was hard. Every family group chat became about Megan's big day, except it hadn't even been scheduled yet. Then things got worse. In late April, I got an email from the venue manager saying my sister had contacted them, pretending to be me and asking to transfer the reservation into her name. Thankfully, the venue owner called me before making any changes because the story didn't sound right. I was furious. I called Megan immediately, and she admitted it, but said she only did it because she knew I wouldn't help otherwise. She actually said, "You don't even love the barn as much as I do. You just booked it first." I lost it. I told her she was entitled, manipulative, and out of her mind if she thought she could steal my wedding. I said she'd officially ruined whatever relationship we had left. That led to her posting a long rant on Facebook about how I stole her wedding dream and chose greed over sisterhood. Half our extended family commented things like family is more important than venues and can't believe how cold-hearted people can be. I've since gone no contact with my parents and Megan for the time being. Adam's family has been incredibly supportive and told me I was right to stand my ground. Still, I keep questioning myself because growing up, I was always taught to be the bigger person. My parents used that line every time Megan caused drama. But this feels different. It feels like if I give in now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Then last week, Megan sent me a long text saying she and Tyler finally found another venue at a winery not too far from mine. But it's in July, 2 months before my wedding. She ended the message with, "You can come if you want, but I doubt you will after what you did." The kicker? My parents are helping her pay for the new place, even though they told me they couldn't contribute to mine because they were tight on money. Now they're trying to spin the story so I look like the villain. My mom said Megan's heart was broken and that I drove her to tears every night. My dad told me I should apologize to mend the family. When I pointed out that Megan tried to commit fraud to steal my venue, they said I was exaggerating and that she just made a mistake. Adam wants to send them a formal message asking them not to contact us until after the wedding. I'm tempted to agree, but I know that it'll just escalate things. My grandma called me yesterday to say she's proud of me for standing my ground, but warned me that the family might turn cold for a while. It sucks because I've always been close to my grandparents and a few cousins, and now everyone feels divided over something that shouldn't even be a debate. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. I didn't steal anyone's dream. I planned my own. I found a venue, I paid the deposit, and I started organizing everything months before Megan even got engaged. But part of me keeps hearing my mom's voice in my head, saying, you could have made things easier for everyone if you just let it go. I can't tell if I'm genuinely being stubborn or if I'm just tired of always being expected to sacrifice for my sister. My whole life has been like this, from sharing my birthday parties with her when we were little to giving up a study abroad trip because she didn't want to be left alone. Maybe this is just the first time I actually said no and stuck with it. Our wedding is coming up soon, and I'm honestly starting to feel guilty even though I know I shouldn't. I love my family, but I can't shake the feeling that they love keeping Megan happy more than they love treating us both fairly. Adam says we should focus on celebrating our day and let everyone else deal with their own feelings. But I'm worried I'll be branded the selfish sister forever. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister the venue I booked, even if it means breaking my family apart. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she got divorced, even though she helped me years ago when I was struggling. I'm a 34-year-old woman, and my sister, Claire, is 37. We grew up pretty close, but our relationship has always been a little complicated. She's always been the big sister type who needs to have a hand in everything. She means well, but she tends to bulldoze people when she thinks she knows what's best. About 8 years ago, I went through a rough patch. I had just lost my job and couldn't afford my apartment. Claire let me move into her house for 6 months. She didn't charge rent, but I had to follow her rules. She had a list of them, like labeling my food in the fridge, doing chores on her schedule, and telling her where I was if I stayed out overnight. It felt suffocating, but I told myself she was doing me a favor, so I dealt with it until I could move out. Fast forward to now. I've got a stable job as an accountant, a house I bought 2 years ago, and a fiancé, Michael, 36. We've been planning our wedding for next spring. Everything was going fine until about 3 months ago when Claire's marriage imploded. Her husband, Mark, cheated on her, and they divorced within weeks. She was devastated, but the divorce settlement gave her a decent payout. However, instead of being careful, she made a series of impulsive decisions, quitting her job to clear her head, leasing a fancy car, and renting an expensive apartment. Within 3 months, she burned through most of her savings. Last month, she called me in tears saying she couldn't keep up with rent and asked if she could stay with me just for a while until she got back on her feet. I hesitated, but I didn't want to seem heartless. I told her I needed to discuss it with Michael first. When I brought it up, Michael's reaction was immediate. Absolutely not. He said he didn't want her moving in because she's controlling and we're about to start our lives together. He reminded me of how she used to micromanage everything when I lived with her, and how during family gatherings she always criticizes the way we do things. Our home decor, our relationship, even my career choices. Still, I felt guilty. I told him maybe it would only be for a month or two, and she could stay in the guest room. He said, if she moves in, I'm staying somewhere else. I love you, but I'm not living with her. That made me pause. I realized how much tension it could create, especially with wedding planning coming up. So I called Claire back and told her I was sorry, but we couldn't host her long-term. I offered to help her find a cheaper rental or even co-sign a lease for a smaller place if she needed. She didn't take it well. She said she couldn't believe I was turning my back on her after what she did for me years ago. She kept bringing up that time she took me in, saying, I gave you a roof when you had nothing, and now that I need you, you slammed the door in my face. I reminded her that I appreciated what she did, but our situations were different. She had a husband then, and she owned her home outright. I said that Michael and I needed privacy and stability right now. She called me selfish and said she couldn't believe I was choosing my fiancé over my own sister. After that, she stopped talking to me. My mom called a few days later, clearly having heard Claire's version. She told me family should always come first, and that Claire had always been there for me. I told her I wasn't abandoning her. I was offering help in another way. Mom sighed and said, money isn't the same as opening your home. Since then, it's been a cold war. Claire hasn't replied to my texts, and I found out through my cousin that she moved in temporarily with a friend, but is telling everyone that I refuse to help her. At our last family dinner, a few relatives were noticeably distant, and one even said, I guess you forget who was there for you when you needed it. Here's where it gets even more complicated. About a week after that dinner, Claire posted a long, emotional message on Facebook about being betrayed by people who pretend to love you. She didn't mention my name, but everyone in our circle could tell it was about me. My aunt even commented, some people show their true colors when you're down. Michael wants me to ignore it, but I'm torn between anger and guilt. I keep replaying those months when she let me stay with her. It's true she didn't charge me rent, and she did help me. But it wasn't easy. She controlled everything from when I could cook to what I could watch on TV. I remember crying once because she scolded me for not folding laundry her way. She saw it as helping me learn responsibility, but I felt like a child. Now I'm being treated like I've committed some kind of betrayal. My mom even said I owe Claire for how she helped me back then. I tried explaining that gratitude doesn't mean lifelong obligation, but she didn't want to hear it. It's been 2 months since all this started, and the wedding is coming up in 6 months. Michael says we should uninvite Claire and my mom because they've been adding stress, but I can't bring myself to do that. It feels too cruel, even though I know they'll probably make the day uncomfortable. I also found out recently that Claire told my mom she might crash the wedding to speak her truth. My mom told me not to worry, that Claire wouldn't actually do it, but I know her. She's dramatic when she feels wronged. I can easily imagine her showing up and making a scene. Part of me feels justified. I offered other ways to help, but she only wanted one thing, to live with me. Another part of me wonders if I should have just let her stay for a short time to avoid all this fallout. But Michael's been my rock, and I can't bring someone into our home who doesn't respect him. A few nights ago, I got a message from Claire saying, I hope you enjoy your perfect little life while your sister sleeps on couches. I didn't reply. I'm exhausted from feeling like the villain in my own family. So now I'm wondering if I really am the bad guy here. I didn't want to punish her for being in a bad spot, but I also didn't want to jeopardize my relationship and peace at home. It's not like I told her to figure it out alone. I offered financial help and support. But to her, if it's not the exact help she wants, it doesn't count. I've always tried to be the peacemaker, but this time, it feels like no matter what I do, I'm the villain. My fiancé thinks I did the right thing and says her manipulation is the same old pattern she's always had. But when I hear my mom's voice saying family should come first, I can't help but question myself. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me, even though she once let me stay with her years ago. AITA for refusing to give up my seat at my own wedding reception because my husband's ex needed it more. Okay, so this is still a bit raw, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm crazy or if my entire new in-law family has lost their minds. I, 29F, got married 2 weeks ago to my husband, Dan, 31M. We've been together for 5 years, engaged for one, and planned a fairly big but still semi-formal wedding, around 120 guests, banquet hall, dinner, dancing, the whole thing. Everything went mostly perfectly during the ceremony and cocktail hour. But then the reception dinner happened, and that's when things went downhill. To explain, Dan has an ex named Jenna, 32F. They dated for about 3 years in their early 20s and broke up long before he met me. Apparently, they were young and dumb and parted on good terms. They didn't stay close, but she's part of a wider friend group that overlaps with Dan's family, so she occasionally pops up at events, birthdays, barbecues, etc. I always found it a little weird, but Dan swore it was platonic in ancient history. When we finalized our guest list, Dan asked if he could invite Jenna because it would be weird to exclude her since she's close to his cousins and she'd probably show up as someone's plus one anyway. I was hesitant, but I didn't want to seem insecure or controlling, so I said fine, as long as she didn't cause drama. Famous last words. At the reception, we had a long rectangular head table at the front where we, the wedding party, sat. Behind us were a few special tables for family and close friends. Everything was assigned seating. Jenna wasn't near us. She was at a mixed friends table halfway across the room. After dinner, I went to the restroom to fix my dress. When I came back, I saw something that stopped me cold. Jenna was sitting in my seat, literally at the head table, laughing and chatting with Dan and his groomsmen like she belonged there. I thought maybe she just popped up for a second to say hi, so I waited for her to move. She didn't. She stayed. When I finally approached, she smiled and said, "Oh, hey, I just needed to sit down for a bit. Hope that's okay." Now, I'm not confrontational, but this was my wedding reception. My literal name was printed on the card at that spot. I smiled and said, "Actually, that's my seat." She looked embarrassed for half a second, but then she said, "Oh, I'm feeling kind of faint. Could I just sit here for a bit? The air conditioning is blowing too hard at my table." Before I could respond, Dan jumped in and said, "Babe, it's fine. She's not feeling great. You can sit next to me on the other side for a while." Except there was no open seat on the other side. The only option was to move someone else. I said quietly, "No, this is my seat. I'll get her some water if she's not feeling well." Jenna immediately got teary and said, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to rest for a second. I didn't mean to make it weird." Then Dan gave me this look, the kind that said, "Please don't make a scene." So now everyone at the head table is staring. I can feel my bridesmaids shifting awkwardly. My maid of honor whispered, "Do you want me to handle it?" But I shook my head. I took a deep breath and said, "You can rest at your table or near the bar. This seat is reserved for me." Jenna stood up slowly, muttering something about not wanting to ruin the night, and walked off. I sat down, trying to shake it off, but I could feel Dan's irritation next to me. Later, during dessert, he leaned over and said, "We didn't have to embarrass her like that." I stared at him, completely stunned. I said, "Embarrass her? She took my seat at our wedding." He rolled his eyes and said, "She wasn't trying to make a statement. She gets anxiety in crowds, and the air conditioning by her table really was bad. You could have just let her sit for 10 minutes. We argued quietly for a bit, and I eventually told him we were not continuing that discussion on the dance floor. But the damage was done. The vibe between us felt tense for the rest of the night. After the wedding, I figured it would blow over. Instead, his mom called me 2 days later to say she was disappointed in how I treated Jenna. Apparently, Jenna had gone home early in tears and told people she ruined the bride's night. Dan's cousins and even a few of his aunts took to social media, posting vague, "Some people just love drama," stories that were clearly about me. Dan said I was overreacting to harmless gossip, but then he admitted he thought I was a little harsh too. He said it was just a chair and that I should have shown more grace. I was floored. I told him it wasn't about a chair. It was about boundaries and respect. It was our wedding, and I shouldn't have had to justify sitting in my own spot. He said I was making something small into something huge and that he didn't want to keep fighting about Jenna. The worst part? At our family brunch, the next morning, Jenna actually showed up. One of Dan's cousins brought her as their guest, which I still don't understand. She gave me this awkward half hug and said, I hope there's no hard feelings. I just didn't feel great that night. I was polite but distant. After she left, Dan told me I'd been cold and that I needed to move on. Since then, things have been tense between us. He says I'm hung up on a non-issue, but I can't stop thinking about how easily he took her side on our wedding day, and how his family seems to think she's the victim here. Even my best friend said that while Jenna was out of line, I could have played it cooler and avoided the scene. But I just don't understand how I became the villain for wanting to sit in the seat literally reserved for me, the bride. I've started to wonder if I really did overreact. Maybe it was just 10 minutes, and maybe I should have let her stay to keep the peace. But every time I replay it in my head, I just feel that same mix of humiliation and anger, like I had to fight for space at my own wedding table. So, Reddit-style world, AITA for refusing to give up my seat to my husband's ex at my own wedding reception, even if she claimed she needed it more. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to take down a family photo wall that excludes my sister's husband and kids. I, 35F, have always been the unofficial memory keeper of my family. I love photography, and since I was a teenager, I've taken hundreds of pictures at every holiday, birthday, and get-together. I print them, frame them, and hang on the big gallery wall in my dining room. Over the years, it's become kind of a tradition that whenever anyone visits my house, they spend time looking at the wall. The thing is, my sister Claire, 33F, and I have had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. She's my only sibling, but we couldn't be more different. I'm pretty organized, love routines, and have always been the kind of person who plans everything in advance. Claire, on the other hand, tends to be spontaneous, emotional, and impulsive. It's not necessarily bad, but it's caused a lot of friction between us, especially because she often feels that I act like her mom instead of her sister. About 7 years ago, Claire married a guy named Evan. None of us were particularly fond of him from the start. It wasn't that he was mean, but he had this very condescending way of speaking to people. He's one of those, I'm just being honest types who says rude things and then acts offended when you call him out. He once told me that my career in graphic design was cute and probably easy because you just use Canva anyway. I ignored it. But then there were worse moments, like at my wedding when he got drunk and said in the microphone during a toast that I'd probably end up divorced first because I like being in charge too much. Everyone laughed awkwardly, and I forgave him because Claire cried and begged me to. But I never really liked him after that. Over the years, I've stayed polite, but we don't interact much outside of family events. Claire and Evan have 2 kids now, ages 5 and 3. I adore my niece and nephew, but I don't see them often. They live about an hour away, and when I visit, it's always some chaos. Evan's loud, the kids are running everywhere, and Claire and I inevitably argue about something small. Now here's where the real problem started. Earlier this year, I renovated my house and decided to completely redo my photo wall. I spent weeks printing new photos, matching frames, and arranging everything by year and event. The final wall has over 70 photos, going back to when I was a kid. When Claire and her family came over for Easter, she noticed something. There were no photos of Evan or their kids. To be fair, there are a few group family photos that technically include them in the background, but no individual or close-up shots. It wasn't intentional at first. I genuinely picked the photos I love the most, which happened to be mostly of my parents, grandparents, my husband, and me with different relatives over the years. I didn't think about making sure every single family member was represented. But when I looked again after Claire pointed it out, yeah, it did kind of look like I'd intentionally left her family out. Claire confronted me immediately, saying, "Wow, thanks for reminding me my family doesn't count." I tried to explain that it wasn't about that, and that I just picked the photos I liked best. She said, "So none of your favorites include your niece and nephew?" "None." Evan jumped in, saying something like, "Don't worry, babe. Some people only frame pictures of people they can control." I told him to stop being disrespectful in my house. That's when the whole thing blew up. Claire started crying, saying that I've always looked down on her choices, that I judge her marriage, and that this photo wall was a perfect example of how I erase her family from my life. She told me that if I can't even include one picture of her kids, she doesn't want them growing up around someone who pretends they don't exist. I told her she was overreacting and that this was my home, my wall, and my memories. I don't curate it for anyone else's feelings. Evan started laughing and said, "Yeah, okay. You keep your shrine of people who actually meet your standards." My husband stepped in and asked them both to leave. After they left, I did go through my photo folders and realized that most pictures of Claire's kids were blurry or chaotic, kids running away, messy food, that kind of thing. I didn't intentionally exclude them, but there weren't many great ones to use either. Still, I decided to print one nice picture of Claire holding her kids from last Christmas and added it to the wall. It's small in the corner. When my mom came over a few weeks later, she noticed and said she was glad I added something, but that it was too little too late. Apparently, Claire told everyone in the family that I only put her kids up after she forced me to. Now my parents are pressuring me to add more balance to the wall, like a few photos of her family to even it out. They said it's the decent sisterly thing to do. I told them that I don't want to redesign my entire wall just to satisfy someone else's insecurities. My house isn't a museum exhibit that has to fairly represent everyone. Claire hasn't spoken to me in 4 months, and she skipped my birthday dinner last week. My parents think I'm being stubborn and could easily fix this by adding a few more photos. But to me, it's not about the photos, it's about the fact that she always wants to control how I show love. My husband thinks I'm totally fine, and that if Claire really cared about being in my life, she wouldn't make it conditional on a wall of pictures. But part of me wonders if I really did cross a line by not being more thoughtful. I didn't intend to exclude anyone, but I know how it looks. A few friends I've talked to are split. Some say Claire's overreacting. Others say I must have some subconscious bias against her family if I didn't notice they were missing from the display. Now I'm second-guessing myself. AITA for refusing to change my photo wall, even though it hurt my sister's feelings? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the joke they pulled on me at the engagement party? So for context, I, 29F, have a brother, Liam, 32M, who's getting married to his fiancée, Amber, 30F, this coming December. Our relationship was fine growing up, not super close, but decent. He was the typical older brother who teased me, but also looked out for me. When Amber came into the picture about 4 years ago, I genuinely liked her at first. She was funny, confident, and seemed to make my brother happy. But as time went on, I started noticing little comments from her that made me uncomfortable. Things like calling me the sensible sibling in a condescending tone, or joking that I give off librarian energy because I'm quieter and prefer staying and then partying. Harmless enough, maybe, but it always felt like she was putting me down for laughs. Anyway, the engagement party was about 2 months ago. It was a big deal. My parents rented out a venue, and over 100 people came. Everyone was dressed to the nines, speeches, music, the whole thing. I had helped organize some of it, including coordinating the catering and flowers because my mom asked me to. I put a lot of effort in and was honestly excited to celebrate with them. During dinner, Amber got up to give a speech. It started out sweet, thanking her family, my parents, and my brother. Then she said she had a special thank you for me. I smiled, thinking she might just acknowledge the help I gave. Instead, she says, "And to my soon-to-be sister-in-law, thank you for showing me exactly what not to wear on a date." Everyone laughed. I froze. She then motioned to the projector screen behind her, where a picture appeared, a photo of me from high school, braces and all, wearing this terrible outfit from the early 2010s. I was about 15, and it was honestly an embarrassing picture. My parents had shown her old family albums once, and she must have taken a photo of that picture without my knowledge. The entire room laughed. My brother was laughing so hard he was wiping tears away. I felt humiliated. I forced a smile and tried to play along, but I was burning inside. Afterward, a few people said it was all in good fun, but others looked awkward and didn't say much. I left early, saying I felt sick. I cried the whole drive home. The next day, I texted Liam and Amber saying that I didn't find that joke funny and that using a teenage photo of me to make fun of me in front of a crowd was humiliating and disrespectful. Amber replied with, "Oh, come on. It was a lighthearted roast. Everyone thought it was hilarious." Liam texted separately saying I was being dramatic and that no one remembers that stuff anyway. For a few weeks, I kept my distance. Then my mom called and said Amber wanted to smooth things over before the wedding. I reluctantly agreed to meet for coffee. When we met, she said, "I didn't mean to embarrass you, but honestly, you're too sensitive. You should be able to laugh at yourself." I told her that there's a difference between a private joke and humiliating someone in front of a crowd. She rolled her eyes and said, "So you're really going to hold a grudge over a funny picture?" I said I wasn't sure if I even wanted to attend the wedding. She looked shocked and said that would ruin the family dynamic. Later, Liam called and accused me of trying to make everything about me. He said Amber was devastated that I'd even consider skipping the biggest day of their lives. I told him straight up, I don't want to celebrate people who think embarrassing me publicly is entertainment. He said I was overreacting and that everyone teases each other in their family. It's just how we show love. I told him that wasn't my love language and hung up. Since then, my parents have been trying to mediate. My mom says she understands why I was upset, but thinks skipping the wedding would cause permanent damage. My dad thinks I should go, smile for a few hours, and then distance myself afterward. But my gut tells me if I cave, I'll just teach them that they can treat me however they want, and I'll still show up to make them look good. It's not even about the photo anymore. It's about respect. I would never dream of humiliating someone like that, let alone family. And the fact that neither of them have offered a sincere apology, only excuses, just makes it worse. To make things even messier, my aunt posted some engagement party photos on Facebook, and one of the pictures was from when everyone was laughing at Amber's speech. People in the comments were saying stuff like, "That was hilarious and best roast ever." I couldn't bring myself to respond, but just reignited all the anger I'd been trying to let go of. Now it's about 5 weeks until the wedding, and my mom is practically begging me to attend. She said she'll make sure I'm not in any photos or on display, but she needs her family to look united. My brother texted again yesterday, saying, "If you're really skipping my wedding over a joke, don't bother contacting me again." I told him that if that's how he feels, then so be it. He said I was unbelievable, that I've changed, and that I'm letting internet culture convince me that I'm the victim. That one really got under my skin because I've been doing therapy for the last year, learning to stand up for myself instead of people-pleasing. I think he hates that I'm not rolling over this time. My best friend says I'm absolutely right to skip it, that it's about boundaries and self-respect. But a few family members have been whispering that I'm taking things too seriously and holding grudges. So now I'm genuinely torn. On one hand, I don't want to be the person who ruined a wedding by not showing up. On the other, I don't want to sit through a day celebrating people who can't even acknowledge that they hurt me. Every time I think about standing there, pretending everything's fine, my stomach knots up. Part of me wonders if I'm being stubborn or overly sensitive. Maybe I should just rise above it and go. But then I picture that moment at the engagement party again, the whole room laughing at me while I sat there smiling through tears, and I just can't shake it. So, AITA for refusing to go to my brother's wedding because of the joke they made at my expense? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she caused drama at a family event? So, some context. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Lisa, 25F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the classic free spirit, while I was more of a planner and rule follower. Our parents always enabled her to some extent, and honestly, it's caused tension between us for years. I'm generally a pretty accommodating person, but I also have boundaries, and sometimes she tests them like it's a sport. Last month, our family had a reunion. My parents invited everyone to this rented cabin for the weekend. I live about 2 hours away, but Lisa lives in another state, so she flew in. I had offered to pick her up from the airport because I wanted to make things easier for her, but she refused, saying she wanted to take a shuttle. Fine, whatever. The weekend started fine. The cabin was beautiful. Everyone was happy. The weather was decent, and I tried to relax. But on the second night, things went south. Lisa had brought her boyfriend, Mark, who I had met briefly once but didn't know well. Apparently, he had a drinking problem that none of us knew about because that night he drank excessively and started being loud and obnoxious. He argued with my cousin over a trivial game of cornhole, spilled wine on my dad's new deck furniture, and then stormed off outside. Lisa followed him, leaving the rest of us to clean up. Later that night, when everyone was supposed to sit down for dinner, Lisa came back alone. She started loudly complaining about how nobody understood her relationship and how we were all being judgmental. She went on for over an hour, criticizing how I had hosted the dinner, how my mom had prepared the food, how my dad arranged the sleeping areas, etc. She even accused me of being controlling for insisting that Mark not drink in the cabin because it could get out of hand. I tried to calmly explain my reasoning, but she yelled at me, calling me the villain of the weekend. At that point, my parents tried to mediate, but it ended with Lisa storming out in tears. Fast forward to the next day. Lisa texted me, asking if she could stay at my place for the rest of her visit because Mark and I need space. I was immediately hesitant. I live alone, I work from home, and my apartment is my sanctuary. I've dealt with Lisa causing drama in my space before, and I wasn't about to let her repeat that. I told her that unfortunately, my apartment wouldn't be comfortable for both of us, and that she should look into a hotel or Airbnb instead. She exploded in response. She said I was punishing her for her relationship, and that I was choosing my comfort over family. She even went so far as to say that I was selfish and that I didn't care about her mental health. My parents got involved, and now they're upset with me. They think I should just put up with her because family is family. I argued that boundaries are healthy and that her behavior at the reunion proved she couldn't respect the space of others. A few days later, Lisa ended up booking a hotel nearby. She's been texting me constantly, trying to guilt me into letting her stay, sending long messages about how I ruined her trip and how I don't understand sisterly love. I've ignored most of them because I don't want to get into another argument, but the family group chat is now a mess. My mom keeps hinting that I should apologize, and my dad has asked me to reconsider. I feel like if I cave, I'll just enable the same behavior again. And honestly, I'm tired of being the one who always has to accommodate her whims. I know I sound harsh, but I genuinely feel like Lisa crossed the line this time. Inviting someone with a drinking problem into a shared space, creating drama, then expecting me to open up my home to them feels like a lot to handle. My friends are divided. Some say I should have let her stay to avoid family tension. Others say I'm right to maintain my boundaries. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my apartment after her behavior at the family reunion. The situation has escalated to the point where the whole family is taking sides, and I'm honestly exhausted. I just want to protect my home and my peace of mind, but now I'm starting to worry that I might be seen as the villain in my own family. AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kid anymore after she called me lazy and ungrateful. I, 27F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emma, 34F. She's one of those people who always has to be right, always has to be in control, and somehow always ends up the victim no matter what happens. Growing up, she was the golden child, straight A's, sports, scholarships, you name it. I was the creative one who was told to try harder to be like Emma. So yeah, there's some built-up resentment there. But despite all that, we've managed to stay somewhat close as adults. Emma got married 5 years ago to a guy named Mark. They had a baby last year, my niece, Lily, who is honestly adorable. I love her to bits. When Emma went back to work after her maternity leave, she asked me if I could help with babysitting a few times a week since daycare was so expensive and they were trying to save for a house. At the time, I was working remotely and had a flexible schedule, so I agreed. She said she'd compensate me a little, though we never settled on an exact amount. At first, it wasn't bad. I'd go over to their house 3 days a week from 9 to 3, watch Lily, feed her, play with her, and clean up a bit. Emma would usually transfer me $50 per day, which wasn't great money, but I told myself I was doing it more as a favor than a job. But over time, things started shifting. She began asking me to come earlier and stay later, and sometimes she'd forget to pay me. When I'd remind her, she'd roll her eyes and say something like, "God, You're so obsessed with money. It's family, not a business. Then there were the expectations. She started leaving me chore lists, dishes, laundry, vacuuming, even prepping dinner. I said I didn't mind tidying up, but I wasn't a housekeeper. She told me I was already there, and it would make her life easier. I kept trying to be understanding because I know motherhood is exhausting, but I started feeling more like her unpaid assistant than her sister doing a favor. The breaking point came last month. I'd had an absolutely brutal work week. A huge deadline, late nights, and almost no sleep. Emma texted asking if I could watch Lily that Saturday, so she and Mark could go to a friend's wedding. I told her I couldn't, that I needed to rest and catch up on my own work. She blew up. She said I was so selfish and had no idea what real exhaustion was like. She went on a rant about how child-free people have no responsibilities and how I should be grateful. I even get to spend time with her kid. I told her I loved Lily, but I wasn't her built-in nanny. We hung up angry. I figured she just needed to cool off, but 2 days later my mom called. Apparently, Emma had complained to her that I abandoned her when she needed me most. My mom, who usually stays out of our fights, told me I should help family when I can and that I was making a big deal over nothing. I told her Emma hadn't paid me in 3 weeks and was treating me like staff, not family. Mom sighed and said Emma was under a lot of stress and I should just let it go. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. Emma texted saying she'd arranged her schedule and daycare, but needed me just this once because Lily had a fever and couldn't go in. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I took the day off work to go help. When I got there, Emma was rushing out the door for a meeting. I told her I'd keep Lily comfortable and monitor her temperature. She said, "You're a lifesaver," and left. That day was awful. Lily was miserable and fussy, wouldn't eat, and kept crying. I tried everything, rocking, singing, walks. I texted Emma updates and asked if she could come home early since Lily was so unwell. She didn't respond for 3 hours. When she finally came back, I was exhausted, covered in baby spit up, and starving because I hadn't eaten all day. She barely thanked me, just said, "You can go now, I've got it." That night, she sent me $25 with a message saying, "Sorry, short on cash this week." I was honestly done. The next day, I texted her saying I couldn't babysit anymore. I said I loved Lily, but felt taken advantage of and disrespected. I mentioned the inconsistent pay and the chores, and how she'd insulted me for setting boundaries. I told her she needed to hire proper childcare or adjust her schedule. She didn't take it well. She sent a long message accusing me of abandoning family, making everything about money, and being lazy. She said she'd never forgive me for putting my precious free time over her daughter's needs. I didn't respond, but my mom called again, saying Emma was devastated and just tired, and that I should apologize for how I said things. My dad, on the other hand, told me privately that Emma had always used me and that I was right to finally put my foot down. Since then, Emma has barely spoken to me. She didn't invite me to Lily's first birthday last weekend. I found out through Facebook photos that she had a party and everyone else in the family went except me. That one hurt. When I asked my mom why she didn't tell me, she said Emma didn't want drama. I told her that not inviting me was the drama. Now I'm wondering if I handled this all wrong. Maybe I should have just sucked it up a little longer. Maybe I should have been clearer about boundaries earlier on. Part of me feels guilty because Lily didn't do anything wrong, and I hate that I'm now cut off from her. But another part of me feels like if I kept enabling Emma, it would just get worse. Last night, Emma sent me a single text. "Hope you're happy. Lily asks about you." That broke me. I cried for hours. But I still don't think I owe her an apology for setting boundaries. I just don't know if walking away completely makes me the bad guy. So, AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kid anymore after she called me lazy and ungrateful. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a past family issue. This is going to be long, but I feel like I need to explain everything in detail to get unbiased perspectives. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lily, 25F, who is getting married in a couple of months. For context, our family dynamic has always been a little tense, mostly because of how our parents treated us growing up, but I've always tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Here's the background. When we were teens, my parents went through a pretty messy divorce. I was 16 and Lily was 13. My dad was a stay-at-home dad at the time, and my mom had been the main breadwinner. After the divorce, it came out that my dad had secretly accumulated a huge debt and had spent years hiding money from my mom. The fallout was massive. My mom had to pay off the debt, my dad had to move out, and our family life completely changed. My dad never apologized for the financial situation, and my mom kind of shut down emotionally for a while. Lily and I were caught in the middle. Fast forward a few years, my dad and I were never particularly close, but I made an effort to see him occasionally. I would meet him for lunch, send him birthday cards, etc., but our relationship was polite at best. Lily, on the other hand, seemed to have forgiven him completely. She visited him more often than I did, sometimes even without telling me. I didn't really mind, but it always felt like she had more of a normal relationship with him than I could ever manage. 2 years ago, my dad started dating someone new, a woman named Clara. At first, it seemed fine, but it quickly became clear that she was very controlling and manipulative. She would constantly criticize my dad, complain about my mom, and even make subtle digs at Lily and me. I tried to stay out of it, but one night I witnessed something that changed everything. My dad had gotten drunk, and Clara started yelling at him in front of me, calling him lazy and incompetent. I tried to intervene, and it turned into a huge argument. My dad didn't defend me. He just walked away. That was the moment I realized that I didn't have a real relationship with him anymore, and I decided to limit contact. Fast forward to last year. Lily got engaged to her fiancé, Ben. She was thrilled, and I was happy for her. But then things started getting complicated. Lily insisted that our dad would play a significant role in the wedding, including walking her down the aisle. I tried to voice that I was uncomfortable being around him, given everything that happened and the way he treated me, but Lily dismissed my concerns. She said it wasn't about me and that I was being dramatic. When the guest list came out, I noticed that Clara was invited as well. I told Lily that I wouldn't attend if Clara was there. I explained that the last time I saw her, she made me feel unwelcome and humiliated my dad in front of me, and I didn't feel comfortable being in the same space with her. Lily got extremely upset. She said I was being unfair to both her and my dad, and that I was letting old grudges ruin her special day. She also mentioned that Ben's family was excited to meet the whole family, including my dad and Clara. I tried to compromise by saying I would attend if Clara stayed in a separate area, or if we could avoid interactions, but Lily said that wasn't feasible and that I was essentially trying to dictate her wedding. She also told me that our parents had talked and agreed that I was being selfish. I got defensive and said that expecting me to pretend everything is fine with someone who has caused me emotional distress isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. She then accused me of holding on to the past and being unwilling to forgive. Since then, communication has basically stopped. I sent a polite message explaining my decision and wishing her a wonderful wedding, and she replied with a very curt, "Okay." Our parents have tried to intervene, saying I should reconsider, but I feel like doing so would betray my own boundaries. I also feel guilty because Lily is my sister, and I know she's deeply hurt. I love her, and I don't want to hurt her, but I also know that being around my dad and Clara would be emotionally taxing, and I can't fake a relationship I don't have. Some friends have told me I'm in the right for protecting my mental health, but others say I'm being overly rigid and need to prioritize family milestones over past grievances. I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this is a reasonable boundary. I'm starting to worry that my refusal could permanently damage my relationship with Lily, but at the same time, I feel like attending the wedding would be emotionally unsafe for me. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of my strained relationship with my dad and his partner. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter's fiancé move in before the wedding. So, some context. I, 38F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 42M, for 7 years. I have a teenage daughter, Ella, 16F, from a previous relationship. Mark has no children, and we have a relatively harmonious blended family situation. Ella and I are very close, and I have always tried to respect her space and opinions while balancing my responsibilities as a parent. Mark's younger brother, Jake, 35M, has been dating my stepdaughter's best friend, Lila, 30F, for about 2 years. Jake and Lila are serious. They've talked about marriage multiple times, and they're currently planning their wedding for next year. Here's where things start to get tricky. A few months ago, Lila mentioned casually to Ella that she and Jake were thinking of moving in together before the wedding because it would make planning easier financially. Ella, being her usual dramatic self, came to me in tears, saying she felt uncomfortable with the idea. I asked her why, and she explained that she's been living in the house for most of her life with her mom and then with me after her parents divorced, and the idea of her fiancé of her best friend living in the house, even temporarily, felt like a huge invasion of privacy. I tried to understand her point of view, and while I thought it was a bit of a stretch, I agreed to have a conversation with Mark about it. When I brought it up, Mark laughed a little and said it was no big deal, that it was just temporary, and that Lila would probably help with rent and groceries. I explained Ella's feelings, and he got defensive, saying I was being overprotective and creating drama where none exists. I reminded him that this was about his brother's fiancée moving into our home, not about Ella bossing people around, and that her comfort should matter since she lives here. I offered a compromise. Jake and Lila could stay with us for short visits, maybe a weekend or 2 at a time, but living here full-time before the wedding was a hard no. Mark was clearly annoyed, saying we were making it unnecessarily complicated. He even hinted that I was being controlling over things that didn't directly involve me, which hurt because I felt like I was standing up for my daughter. After that, tension started rising. Mark told his family I didn't want them over, which led to Lila messaging me directly. Lila was very sweet about it and said she understood but seemed a little hurt. She tried to explain that moving in early was practical for them financially and that she didn't mean to make anyone uncomfortable. I thanked her for understanding, but reiterated that it wasn't a good idea for her to live here before the wedding. Mark, on the other hand, has been giving me the silent treatment for a few weeks. He says he feels like I don't trust his judgment, and he even brought up the idea of letting Jake stay anyway without discussing it with me, assuming I would just get over it. I told him flat out that was not happening. Our arguments have gotten louder and longer, with him accusing me of overstepping and me accusing him of undermining me. The rest of the family has started to get involved, too. Jake's mom texted me, saying she thought I was being unreasonable and that adults should be able to make their own decisions. Ella got anxious after a conversation with Lila, worrying that she would somehow be the bad guy for stopping them from moving in. I reassured her that she was not, but she still feels guilty. Mark and I had a long discussion yesterday, where he basically said that if I don't let Jake and Lila move in, he feels like I am prioritizing a teenager over his family, and that this is not how a married couple should handle these situations. I pointed out that my priority has always been the people who live in my house, especially my daughter, and that moving in with strangers, even family, is not a small thing. He said that the house belongs to both of us, and that I'm being unfair. I don't want this to become a bigger issue, but Mark keeps bringing it up as if I am deliberately trying to make everyone miserable. I feel like I'm standing firm on a boundary that is perfectly reasonable, but now I'm starting to wonder if I'm being too rigid. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter's fiancé move in before the wedding. Additional context that might help. Jake and Lila have their own apartment, but are trying to save money. Ella's room is near the living room, so she'd feel like her privacy is compromised. I am generally very open to hosting guests, but have a hard line when it comes to long-term stays that could affect my daughter's comfort. I am honestly trying to find a balance here, but it's becoming increasingly stressful. AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding because of my strict house rules. So, this all started about 6 months ago. I, 32F, live in a moderately sized house I inherited from my grandparents, and I've lived alone here for about 5 years. My house is very important to me, not just because of the memories, but also because I have strict personal rules about cleanliness, noise, and who can use certain spaces. For example, I don't allow smoking anywhere on the property. I have a no pets rule, and I'm very particular about where people can put food or drinks. I know it might sound extreme, but these rules are what allow me to feel comfortable in my own home. My cousin, 30F, let's call her Laura, recently got engaged to a guy I've only met a few times. Laura and I have always had a decent relationship, but we're not super close. When she got engaged, she immediately started making plans to have her wedding at my house. I was shocked because I had never discussed this possibility with her, and I have never hosted events of that scale. I asked her why she thought this was appropriate, and she said, "Well, your house is beautiful, and it's perfect for an intimate wedding. Everyone would love it, and it would save us money." I explained to her that I have strict house rules, and that a wedding, even a small one, would completely disrupt the order I maintain in my home. I told her I wouldn't allow smoking, pets, alcohol outside of a designated area, or more than a certain number of guests. I also made it clear that she couldn't hire a catering service that would use my kitchen in ways I wasn't comfortable with, nor could she decorate in a way that might damage the walls or furniture. I even told her that cleanup would be her responsibility and that I expected the house returned to its exact previous state immediately after the event. Laura seemed offended. She said that my rules are ridiculous and that if I couldn't accommodate her wedding, she would have to find another venue, which would be a major inconvenience for her. I told her I understood that, but I couldn't compromise on my boundaries. I also pointed out that a wedding is an enormous undertaking, and my house is simply not equipped to host dozens of people comfortably. She got visibly upset and started calling me selfish and controlling. The argument escalated over several weeks. Laura contacted other family members and framed the situation as me refusing to support my cousin's wedding out of selfishness. Suddenly, multiple relatives were calling me, asking why I wouldn't do something so meaningful for family. I tried to explain that it wasn't a matter of being mean, it was a matter of boundaries and respecting the home I live in. I also offered to help in other ways, like helping her plan, providing decorations, or even lending her some money for the venue, but she refused every offer. She said that none of those things mattered if the wedding couldn't happen in my house. Things came to a head about 2 months ago when Laura said she had already invited most of the guests under the assumption that the wedding would be at my house. I told her she should have confirmed before sending invitations, and that now the solution is to find an alternative venue. Laura accused me of trying to ruin her wedding and said that my behavior was emotionally abusive. At this point, I stopped engaging because it was clear no amount of reasoning would convince her. The last straw came last week. I received an email from a distant cousin, copied to nearly 20 family members, accusing me of destroying family unity by refusing to host the wedding. The email was full of passive-aggressive comments, assumptions about my intentions, and claims that I was selfish, controlling, and unwilling to sacrifice for family happiness. At this point, I just ignored it and moved on. Now, Laura is planning her wedding at a venue across town, and most of the family has chosen sides. Some relatives have told me that I was completely justified. Others think I went too far and should have compromised. The issue is still being brought up at family gatherings, and I feel like I'm constantly having to defend myself. I am genuinely concerned that my refusal has permanently damaged my relationship with Laura and possibly other relatives. I feel strongly that my boundaries should be respected and that no one has the right to demand access to my home for such a large and intrusive event. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently, but I honestly feel that hosting a wedding under any conditions she wanted would have caused me serious stress and probably some damage to my property. I've always been someone who likes to keep my home in a very specific way, and I think it's reasonable to expect that from others. On the other hand, I also recognize that family expectations are a tricky thing, and maybe I should have been more flexible, even if it was inconvenient. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding because of my strict house rules and personal boundaries. Character count, 6612 if you want. I can create 3 more alternative stories in this same style, each with slightly different dynamics, so you can have a full batch of viral-style AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's dream wedding because she made it clear I wasn't part of the dream. I, 29F, have an older sister, Emily, 32F, who has always been the main character of our family. She's the pretty one, the one who excelled in everything, the one my parents doted on. I was more introverted, artsy, and kind of a background character in our family dynamic. It never really bothered me growing up because I found my own space and identity outside of it, but it's always been clear that in my parents' eyes, Emily is the star. Emily has been with her fiancé, Mark, for 5 years. They met at work and got engaged last year. When they first announced it, everyone was thrilled. I was genuinely happy for her and offered to help however I could. I do photography and graphic design, so I volunteered to make her invitations and take engagement photos for free. She accepted, but she was oddly controlling about it, insisting on directing every shot, rewriting my invitation designs, and then telling everyone how much she designed everything herself. I brushed it off because I didn't want to cause drama, but the first red flag came when she asked me to be a guest instead of part of the bridal party. I didn't expect to be maid of honor, but I assumed I'd at least be a bridesmaid. She had 6 bridesmaids, her college friends, 2 coworkers, and even our younger cousin who she barely talks to. When I asked if I'd done something wrong, she said she wanted her wedding party to have a certain aesthetic and that family would be represented by presence, not participation. It stung, but again, I didn't make a fuss. As the wedding planning continued, I was asked repeatedly by our parents to help with random tasks because Emily's so stressed. I designed her seating chart, helped our mom choose decor, and even edited the video montage for the reception. I spent hours doing all this and got nothing but short text from Emily like, "Thanks," or "Can you fix this part?" Then, a few months ago, she called me with a small request. She wanted me to take photos during the ceremony and reception, not as a professional, but just to capture some extra moments. I asked if she'd be paying me or if I'd be treated as a guest while doing it. She said, "Well, it's not really a job. I just trust I'm more than the photographers. You can enjoy the wedding too." I told her no because I wanted to actually attend as a guest for once and not work. She said she didn't think I'd be so selfish. That was strike 2. The real breaking point came last month when we got the official invitations in the mail. My boyfriend, Noah, 31M, and I have been together for 4 years. Emily has met him dozens of times. They're not close, but he's always been polite and supportive. When I opened the envelope, I saw only my name on the invite. No and guest. I texted Emily to ask if that was a mistake. She said it wasn't. Her exact words were, "We're keeping the guest list tight, and since we've never been that close with Noah, we didn't think it made sense to include him. Plus, we're doing assigned seating, and it'd be awkward to have him alone with people he doesn't know." I told her that was really hurtful, especially since most of her bridesmaids' boyfriends were invited. She said, "They're all engaged or married, and you're not. It's nothing personal, it's just about optics." That phrase, "about optics," honestly broke something in me. I realized that in Emily's perfect little aesthetic wedding, I was just another prop she wanted to control. I decided then that I wasn't going. I told my parents first because I didn't want them to hear it from her. My mom immediately panicked and said I was being dramatic. My dad said, "Just go and be the bigger person." But when I explained how many times Emily had excluded and used me, my dad sighed and said, "She's always been particular, but she loves you in her own way." When I told Emily directly, she completely lost it. She accused me of ruining her wedding experience and making everything about myself. She said I was choosing a man over my own sister. I told her it wasn't about Noah. It was about respect. She laughed and said, "You've always been jealous of me, and this just proves it." That was our last conversation. The wedding happened 2 weeks ago. I didn't go. Instead, Noah and I took a short trip to a nearby lake cabin. I posted a single photo of us kayaking that day. No caption, nothing directed at her. My mom called me that evening crying, saying Emily was devastated that I'd publicly snubbed her. Apparently, several relatives noticed my absence and asked about it, and Emily had to explain that I'd boycotted her wedding because of a guest list misunderstanding. Now my family is divided. My parents think I should apologize for making a scene. My aunt and a few cousins said they completely understand why I didn't go. My dad's side of the family has been gossiping nonstop about it. Emily hasn't spoken to me since. But yesterday she sent me a text saying, Hope you're happy. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You could have at least shown up for me, even if you didn't bring your boyfriend. I didn't respond. I feel sad about how things turned out, but I also feel like I finally stood up for myself. For years, I've bent over backward to make her happy, to avoid conflict, to be the quiet, understanding sister. But this time, I just couldn't stomach being treated like an accessory to her perfect day. Now my parents are hinting that I should invite her over for dinner to clear the air. They said family should be united and that life's too short to hold grudges. I get that, but I also don't think Emily has any remorse. She just wants me to fall back into my role as the person who smooths things over for her. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Maybe I could have gone and just kept my distance. Maybe I could have shown up for the ceremony and skipped the reception. But then again, every time I imagine sitting there watching her have her perfect day while pretending nothing was wrong, I feel that same sick, heavy knot in my stomach. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she didn't invite my boyfriend and treated me like an afterthought. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.